Hey guys, it's your host Julian. This week I'm sitting down with regular show head writer Matt Price. I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons that help support this podcast. Bill, Brent, Brittany, Eight-Legged Bird, and Jacob. Thank you all so much for your support. It truly means a lot. If you want to become a member of our Patreon channel to help support this show and get all of these episodes early and ad-free, follow the link below and sign up today. Now, let's get to my chat with Matt. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my head podcast. I'm your host Julian. Today I'm joined by Matt. Matt, welcome back to the show, man. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I've really been looking forward to this one. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking regular show with Matt here. So Matt, we'll take it back all the way back to the beginning. How do you get on the regular show?
Well, okay, so I moved to LA to be an actor and a writer. And I was performing a lot and working on sitcom development, doing some guest star stuff as an actor. And then I started, while doing that, also writing on some shows on Comedy Central, like some variety shows. While I was on one of them, there's a show called The Root of All Evil with Louis Black, right? Comedy Central show, probably like 15 years ago, maybe a little longer. Anyway, while I was there, I met the co-creators, David Sachs. He was a longtime Simpsons writer. I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but very
No.
funny guy. And then we became friendly, and then I worked on another Comedy Central show, and then Sachs was the story editor for this new show called Regular Show. This is 2009. And he calls me, and I'm just finishing up this other show, and as a writer, and he says, hey, do you want to come meet? They're looking for a staff writer. A story editor is basically the head writer of an animated show. And so I go in, I meet with JG and Mike Roth, JG Quintel, who created the show, Mike Roth, who was the basically the art director, co-EP, both incredibly talented. Neither of them in the interview looked me in the eye. JG might have, because he's a very kind of like a fun, upbeat guy. Mike, who's one of the most talented visual artists I've ever met, he and JG. Mike was like looking down and drawing and very like insular, like a visual artist,
Mm-hmm.
And I've told Mike the story a million times. Like, he agrees, so I'm not like talking out of turn. Anyway, long story short, I didn't think we were getting a lot. I didn't think they wanted to hire me at all. I'd never worked in animation. I'd done a lot of comedy. I'd written on a bunch of stuff. And I was an improviser. I'm like from Chicago, or outside of Chicago in Evanston, and I'm just like an improv person. But I'd never done animation. I always thought it was really cool, but I didn't think they wanted to hire me. And then JG, like 10 minutes into the interview, kind of an awkward interview, he goes, what are your favorite movies? Just like random. And I just randomly was like, well, I love Rushmore. And he kind of like lit up. He was like, whoa, I love Rushmore. I love Wes Anderson. And we started talking about Wes Anderson. And suddenly I'm like, oh, maybe I will get hired for this job. And then I left. You know how it is on an interview. Like, you don't know, right? So I left thinking like, I don't think I got it, but maybe. And then they hired me for 7 weeks. This was October 2009. They were like, look, the network's making us hire a writer. So we want to hire you for 7 weeks, and then that's it. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll just hang out. And then they kept me for 7 years, and they just kept hiring me back. And I watched this, this little show, which was kind of not an afterthought, but it was kind of like, at the time, the Cartoon Network was developing Adventure Time as well. And they like loved Adventure Time. And we were like the little kind of, like a cousin. They were like, yeah, hell, they'll be fine. And we always had a little chip on our shoulder, in my opinion, because of that. But then anyway, long story short, I stayed, and I eventually became the story editor in season 3. And I worked on over 250 episodes as a writer. And I watched this amazing thing like grow from JG's short film, basically, in Cal Arts, and developed from the pilot, which was, I remember watching that too, watching like the presentation, which isn't the pilot, but it's like a 7-minute short basically.
Mm.
And I remember being like, what the hell is this thing? you know, what's going on? It was really cool, but it was more like a mood. And I didn't know honestly, like, I was like, how can I add to this? And then slowly I watched him and Mike like just really intensely develop this show in the room, and just set up the chairs was like the first one. They had already done the power, and they did Rigby's body, and then just set up the chairs. I think that and caffeinated coffee tickets were like the next two up, if I remember correctly. And I remember being like, dude, this show is hilarious, and I loved it, and I couldn't get enough of it. And so that was it. That's how I started. And again, like I said, I stayed for all 8 seasons in the movie, and just anyway, that's how it all started.
That's wild. 7 weeks to 7 years, man. It's a pretty cool run. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
no lie. And I remember the line producer Janet came in, and Janet Diamond, who's like legendary animation producer, just made a lot of cool stuff. And she came in my office. She was like, "Look, I'm just they only need you for 7 weeks because it was October, so she was basically like, look, Thanksgiving you're gonna be done, but
yeah.
thank you." And I was like, sure. And then Thanksgiving rolls around, and they're like, you know what? Just stay through the rest of the season. So that'll be like April. And I was like, okay, or whatever it was, like till the summer. And I was like, great, this is really fun. And then April came. They're like, we're gonna do another season. You want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And then that just kept happening, which is rare in TV in
Hmm.
any capacity. So I'm so grateful. Looking back, I'm just like so grateful that that happened. And yeah,
Yeah.
happy,
I, lo-
happy I got involved somehow through David Sachs, and that they kept me.
I, I love to hear stories like that, man. So thank you for sharing. With that being said, how old were you? That's 15 years ago. So how old were you when you started interviewing with that with JG and Mike?
35.
So I got to imagine your sensibility, probably your sense of humor was a little bit different than that one, but it really felt like with every time I saw somebody's name written up there under written by, it's art by, it felt like they had the right person at every episode. I'm
Yeah.
not going to blow smoke. I mean, there's not one episode of this entire series that I don't like.
Hmm.
There's some that I like more than others because of the comedy
Sure.
or for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
I love literally every episode of this show. But it always felt like one hand knew what the other was doing. Like the left always knew what the right hand was doing. You know what I mean? You guys complemented each other very well. What was that sensibility like when you're trying to understand JG's humor? Did you guys have a lot of the same humor? Is it something you had to grow into?
Well, so JG is very funny,
Hmm.
and he and I think what well, sort I guess to answer your question, I think short answer, yeah. I think it's your job on any writing job to come in and find out what the creator of the show, like how they tick, like how they work, what they want, and what their sensibility is. Whether if it's a comedy, what do they think is funny? If it's a drama, like what do they think is interesting for dramatic material? But it's your job really to come in and absorb that, right? It's not your job to come. It's not Matt Price's job, me, to come in and go, this is what I'm saying is funny, and we got to
Yeah.
make the show go here. It's like, no, I got to find out what JG thinks is funny, and what Mike Roth too at the time thought was funny. So it was kind of a blessing that I got to sit back first season and really watch JG and Mike hash it out, and I learned what they thought was funny, and I learned how they wanted to structure it, and I learned
Mhm.
that they wanted to start grounded and then build to this surreal moment and this magical moment and then solve the problem, whatever Rigby and or Mordecai and Rigby wanted or Muscleman wanted or whatever. But in that respect, it was great because I got to learn, to your point, I had to figure it out. I had to figure out, okay, JG likes this kind of comedy. He doesn't like this. So I know now when I'm pitching to not waste his time and
Mhm.
pitch like, and what I did anyway, I would still waste his time, but like hopefully I would do it less. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you got to know. And I think, I don't know if this is what you're saying, but there were a lot of people on regular show that had their own comedic sensibility. and it came in a great way. Like, Toby's was a little different from, say, like Shion's, which was a little different from Sean's, but everyone understood the show, and that's what made it special. I think one of the reasons it was special because everyone was like, "All right, we get why the whole thing is funny. We're gonna add our comedy to it, but like underneath this sort of umbrella of what is regular show."
So
Does that
do
make
you?
sense?
Oh, it does 100%. I mean, um, it's kind of easy to know where you're going when you got the guy that's in charge that already's got that vision. He's already got the path set out. It's just laying
Yeah.
those bricks one by one. You know what I mean? So it definitely does make sense. With sticking on JG and Mike for just a second, man, is there one or two things that you might have taken from them that you learned while you were sitting back and then just trying to absorb everything? You said it was your first job in animation. So
Yeah.
what were some of those things that like you latched onto that you might still use in your career now that you learned from regular show?
100%. So I learned vision, like clarity of the world. Like their world building was so good.
Hmm.
And they were very clear, and I talk about this a lot, to build, make sure that the main characters, Mordecai Rigby, Skips, Muscle Man, Benson, Fives to a degree, um, they were rock solid characters. Like, and they had to have authentic motivations, just like in a live action show,
Hmm.
right? But the difference was the rules of regular show in animation. The rules have to be rock solid, and they're going to be a little different than live action rules. So that's something I've learned, and I've tried to take that to other shows I've worked on after regular show. Got to have that locked in, you know. JG also, I always talk about his just vision in general, like what he, if I would pitch something, he would, sometimes he would be like, I don't know if so and so would say that, or I don't know if so and so would do that. And that's honestly because he just has this clear vision of the show. And at first that would annoy me. I'd be like, but I think it's funny. But then I'd always realize, and I'm not just, blowing smoke up his ass. But it's true. I just would always realize, no, he knows this world. It's like
Hmm.
he lives in it. I mean, he is Mordecai, like
Yeah.
vocally, he's not Mordecai, but, um, he just had it, and that's rare. I've worked on a bunch of shows where the creator of the show doesn't have it,
Hmm.
and you can tell. You can tell the show is just kind of like not memorable. But
Yeah.
regular show's memorable because he created this unique world, and everything, in my opinion, is authentic. So I took
Yeah.
that away for sure. I also took away, I mean, I took away a lot of things, but just thinking for me, like learning how to think more visually, because I came into the world where everything was really talky, right? I
Hmm.
wasn't thinking like, oh, that'd be cool if there was a limosaurus and it was this epic thing. I would just think more like, well, what's funny about like you and I talking in a scene, or what's funny about like going on a date and like that, and I still do, but now I can apply animation principles to it and more surrealism, and that's just been like a treat, honestly. It just
Oh,
opens up a part of your brain where you're like, whoa, okay, I didn't know that was in there. Like,
you get to
cool.
stretch a different muscle.
100%.
No, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, you had mentioned something earlier about you didn't want to waste JG's time pitching something that he might not think was funny, right? Even
Yeah.
though you said you would waste his time sometimes.
Sure.
Um, does any of those times where you might have thought you wasted JG's time stick out the most to you? Was there a joke that you wanted to get that you just thought was so funny, but nobody else got it?
Sure. Well, I can tell you this. I can think about it more with characters.
Hmm.
Like I love, like I talked about world building a little bit. So there were times I would just pit. There's a like Don, like Rigby's brother Don. Like there's like one episode. I think Give Me Some Sugar. Like that's one of the
Yeah,
first regular show episodes, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's second season, but it's early, right?
yeah, very early.
You don't see Don much after that. But man, I pitched Don a lot.
Yeah,
I would be like pitching Don, just like, hey, what if Don ran a stand-up club? And he'd be like, dude, no, we're not doing it. So that was an example. I'm a big, like, I just love music. So I think I would pitch like musicals, you
yeah,
know, and that costs a lot of money. animation wise, right? So he wouldn't be into that. I'm the voice of Quips,
Hmm.
so I would, which is like regular show's least favorite character of all time. But I would pitch Quips and two, and he'd be like, you know.
Did you guys do a poll for that? Why is he the least favorite? I dug the character, man.
Oh, I mean, I always say that because Quips is generally, he's like an intentionally irritating,
Yeah.
But
That's what makes
every
him
once in a
endearing, though.
while, say what?
That's what makes him endearing, though, because everybody knows a character like that.
I appreciate it. It's relatable. Yeah, I always think those characters can be relatable.
Hmm.
My friend's son, who's in college now, like I'll leave him voicemails as quips and just be like, "Hey, it's your birthday, Zingo," he'll crack up. But those people are few and far between. But anyway, I would pitch like I'd be like, "Hey, what if it's Quips, whatever?" Because Quips, where he got married, we did Quips bachelor party. So I'd be
Hmm.
like, "What if Quips and his wife like had a kid?" And he was like, "Dude, just stop it." But he was always nice. I'm not. By the way, he was nice about it. He would laugh. He
Yeah.
knew it was funny, like in the writers' room, but he knew that was as far as it would go.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, "We can go a little farther, though. We can do it." So
That's really
stuff like
cool.
that. But I don't remember jokes per se, but characters 100%. I do remember that. And we had a lot of episodes that we killed. I mean, we had more episodes that we killed than that we produced. So there's a million of those. Just part of the process.
Oh, that'd be cool to revisit some of those killed episodes. Speaking of the writers'
We
room,
call
this is
them
something I've
cold
been
subs, by the way. We call them cold subs
cold subs. Where does that name come from?
because very early in regular shows tenure, we used to go to Jersey Mike's. You ever go to? Do they have Jersey Mike's out there?
Yeah.
So we go to Jersey Mike's. We'd walk it. We were in Burbank, so we'd walk like half a mile in Burbank. There's like a Jersey Mike's and In-N-Out Burger and like a couple places. And at the time at Jersey Mike's, if you got a hot sub, if you ordered like a hot sub, like a
Hmm.
egg chicken parm or whatever, they would call back like you'd order it, and the dude at the counter would be like, "Hot sub," like he'd be really excited, right? But if you ordered just like a turkey
Mm.
cold, he would be like,
Cold
"Cold
sub.
sub," like really low. So we started calling for the whole show. I'm not kidding, like 8 seasons. If an episode got through, it was a
Hmm.
hot sub.
Yeah.
Whatever. Every episode you've seen is a hot sub. But then there are quite literally over 700 cold subs. So if an episode got killed, like some Dawn episode, it'd be like cold sub. And I have this list of cold subs. Literally, it's called the Cold Sub Club. We were gonna get T-shirts made, and it's just like 700 episodes of stuff that didn't work for whatever reason, or just one of us or JJ or somebody was just like, nah, I don't want to work on that. But that's how it started.
Oh, I like that, man. That's funny. I used to work at Moe's Southwestern Grill. You ever been to one of those?
No,
All right, so
is that a Florida thing?
it's man, I've seen them. I can't remember where I've seen them all. I want to say I've seen them as high as Virginia, maybe, but even then, that's kind of stretched because I've been to Virginia for 8 years. But it's think Chipotle, but like better. It's in between Taco Bell and Chipotle, right? And whenever anybody would walk in there, you got to say, "Welcome to Moe's," right? And it's after the it doesn't matter how many times, like if a person walks in, walks out, your manners come over, even though they're here, you got to say it. So whenever you're saying hot sub, cold sub, the first thing I thought it was like, oh, that guy lived for hot subs because he got to do hot subs maybe one out of every four, five.
Yeah.
It made him feel something. So you guys gave something, not only gave a cartoon, but you gave that one Jersey Mike's sub
Yes.
sandwich guy. You gave him something to live for that day. Um,
I'm
with
happy.
the
We could do that for him. Yeah, he was certainly excited, but then conversely sad
yeah,
because I would get cold subs usually. So I felt bad walking up there being like, "Yeah, can I just get a turkey with onion and hot mustard?" And he'd be like, "Cold sub."
he
Like,
he was on the edge.
yeah, he probably, yeah. I don't want to know what happened to him, but yeah.
He's probably running Jimmy John's right now, man. But keep it on the writers' room for just a sec, because I am fascinated when I get to talk to some writers because I love the entire process of, animation in itself, but writers, how you guys can kick stuff back and forth. It's very collaborative on both the writing and the animation side because you guys are always trying to make each other laugh. You're always trying to plus it up.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite memories from the regular show writers room? Does any one or two stick out to you?
I mean, I will say, has anybody talked about the writer's game we played?
No, I've
So
never heard a
this is
game.
okay. So this is like, I mean, this is how we came up with so many episodes. But we had this game. I can't think about the writer's room without this
Mhm.
coming up. But we used to play this game, this writer's game, where we would basically we had slips of paper and we would write fake titles for regular show on the paper, and then we'd put the titles in a hat, and then we would pull out the title, and there'd be, let's say there are five of us, right? So we had 1 minute based on the title to write a regular show episode.
Ooh.
So say we pull out the title and it says like you know Rigby's burrito face.
Hmm.
All five of us have to write stream of consciousness, just like what's that episode, really quick. Rigby's burrito face. Rigby has his face looks like a burrito in the mirror, and they have to fix the mirror, and the mirror is a portal to whatever. And most of those ideas were bad. But if you just found one gem or two gems, that was like a gold. It was like finding a golden nugget,
Hmm.
right? You're just sifting for gold. So anyway, we played that game a lot, and so my memories of the writers' room are mainly playing that game. And like I would like to write freehand a lot, so my hand was killing me. Anyway, that's a memory. I also remember, honestly, I at first didn't really feel like I fit in the writers' room, like because I didn't know anything about animation. I was really quiet, and then one day we were talking about donuts, and, and I was like, I love donuts. Like donuts are like, I mean, I'm sitting down, but I've got like a dad donut bod. And
Yeah.
there's a place by me, Bob's Donuts, which is like the best Los Angeles donuts. They're old school, and I was just bragging about them, and I brought them in. And but for me, it like kind of broke in, like it helped me break into the writers' room in some way. Like it was like showing something I loved, and everyone loved donuts and whatever. It sounds kind of silly, but it was just like my way in some ways. So anyway, I started bringing Bob's Donuts, and then everyone started, bringing their own donuts occasionally, and um, this is all a long way of saying I love donuts, but it became like a fun thing in the writers' room. Like writers' rooms are a lot about food.
Hmm.
Any writers' room I've ever been in, it's like obsessed with what's your lunch and what snacks are there and this, that, and the other thing. But donuts to me are a big part of regular show. And me bringing them initially was like, I don't know. I have warm feelings about it.
That was you building a bridge, man. That was you reaching out, trying to make a connection with somebody, man.
It was
It's
a
pretty dope.
donut bridge. It was like a
Yeah.
chocolate long john to the future.
So I'm a vanilla cream or a glazed blueberry. What's your donut of choice?
I like a chocolate glazed,
Yeah.
like a double chocolate.
Hmm. Chocolate
That's
on
my
chocolate.
chocolate on chocolate. Yeah, if I could have any donut, that'd be what I'd get. I'm a pretty
Hmm.
simple guy. I don't. I mean, I
Yeah.
like fancy donuts too. Those are great. I'm
Hmm.
not a big jelly donut guy, but like, yeah, glazed donut, chocolate, perfect. Maple, I discovered. Nah, I didn't discover it, but like, I didn't know there was maple, like a maple glaze.
Uh-huh. You
Damn.
ever had the maple bacon one?
Yeah, of course, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was stationed up in the Pacific Northwest, I was out of Bremerton, but we did a little stay over in Portland. And
All
Portland
right.
is famous for Voodoo Donuts. I don't know if you've ever been there. Um,
Yeah, they have one down here now. I
yeah.
think.
Oh,
Anyway,
they're fantastic. Get
yeah.
the next time if you're buy one, go by and ask for a Memphis Mafia donut. As long as you're not allergic to peanut butter, I think you'll be fine. But it's the size and it looks like an apple fritter. Chocolate, peanut butter cups. It is fantastic. You're gonna be sleepy for the rest of the day. I eat two of them in one go just to live on the edge. You know what I mean? You get a chance it every once in a while, but it's worth it.
Say that again. Was it
The
the
Memphis Mafia. So it's a play
Memphis
on an
Mafia?
Elvis. Yeah, it's a play on an
Okay,
Elvis. Delicious, delightful.
I'm
Um,
in.
so these three episodes, man,
Yeah.
you gave me were excellent. Just set up the chairs and the finale.
Mhm.
Obviously, I want to save the finale for the end of the episode, of course, because
Sure.
we might have to just turn the lights off after we talk about the finale, just because of just you guys dropped the microphone in the best possible way on this one. It was just
Got
the
real. Yeah.
oh, dude, it was beautiful from start to finish, man.
Thank you.
And a culmination of what was it? I know 8 seasons, but it was it
Yeah.
11 years, 10 years?
It was 8 seasons. It was 7 years really in production, maybe eight. I was on it for seven, and then I shifted to Close Enough
Mhm.
with a lot of the crew, while some of the crew was also finishing. So it's probably eight, I would
Eight.
guess. But yeah, I
Damn.
mean, look, it was 260 episodes.
Oh, it
And
was.
it was the end of the also the arc. Like there was a whole dome in the park, and
Mhm.
God went off into space and everything, and so it was a culmination of that, right? As well as just everything they've gone through in 8 seasons. So it was, yeah. Anyway, but we can talk about it.
Absolutely, man. So where do you want to start with? You want to start with excellent, or you want to start with just set up the chairs? Which one you want to talk about first?
I mean, we can talk about well, just set up the chairs. Since I brought up before, I think I brought up before. Like,
Hmm.
it was a big one for me because first of all, it's one of the earliest, right?
Hmm.
It's like I think it's one of the purest episodes.
Yeah.
It's just to me, if I'm describing, if someone's like, "What's regular show about?" Give me an example. I'm like, "Well, let me give you an example. It's two best friends just don't want to work. They don't. They do anything to not work, right? They'll work way harder than they would have done working to not work, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So in this episode, all Benson wants them to do is set up like 30 chairs. That's it. 30. It's like it would take literally probably 15
10,
minutes,
yeah, 10, 15 minutes.
10, 15. And they just won't. There's two of them. So yeah, 10 minutes top. So, but they don't want to do it. So anyway, it's just so simple and but relatable to all of
Hmm.
us who have tried to get out of work or just like annoyed by our boss. And then but then it goes to this like insane place with a super cool villain, uh, the Destroyer of Worlds,
Destroyer of Worlds.
and I remember, I mean, so aside from just loving that and then how this really simple, relatable thing becomes this very surreal battle with this video game villain very organically, I think. That I loved. I was like, that to me was just very cool. And then again, it was like, it was one of the things that really made me see, like, oh, this is regular show.
Hmm.
I get it. I get it. Like, if this is the blueprint, this is like the schematic for what's to come because it's just like simple problem. We all relate to it. I mean, that's why I think people like the show. It's just like one of the reasons. Like, we all relate to this problem as adults and even as older kids. We're like, we relate to it, right? Grounded thing. But then some people also relate to this, not relate to, but they just appreciate this like insane thing, this villain. And anyway, that plus again, me starting and kind of being like, wow, this is my intro to regular show. Okay, I want to make these. I just want to make as many of these as we can. So that's the reasons why I love that episode.
Well, it's
And
cool, man.
Destroyer
You
of
clicked
Worlds
with
is
it.
such a cool, like the coolest name. It's just like I don't know. It's very
Great rock
80s,
band.
but also
Yeah, great
it's
rock
very
band name.
rock and roll. And that's a big part of our show too, I think. It has this like, edge to it, which is I loved, you know. Video games I love, just like it had everything that I loved.
The music played so well with the characters, with the shit that the characters got into, with the writing, with the voice act. Like it was just perfect across the board. When you guys are writing an episode in particular, do you guys have a song that you kind of want to get in there, or do you guys just listen to a whole bunch of stuff and like, fuck, I'm gonna write something to this because this sounds like it would be a good chase scene type of thing?
Sometimes we do. I mean, all shows have budgets that they can't just blow through, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes we'll be like, "Oh, dude, Van Halen would be." I forget which one. Van Halen, I think, was in an episode, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, like, we'll talk about the finale, but like, I'll say in advance of that, we spent some time thinking of what the song would be as they descended
Mhm.
back to Earth and Heroes. I think I pitched Heroes, David Bowie, which is what we used, and
Mhm.
and it's just a perfect song for that moment. Um, I mean, I can't watch that moment with that. Well, we'll talk about it. But anyway, so sometimes that'll happen, right? And then sometimes it's more of just like a mood, like, okay, it'll be like, because a lot of times it's just that like 80s, almost like hair band
Mhm.
rock. So it'd be like, oh, dude, it'd be great if like Pantera or some, or like whatever, some, hilarious shredding, you know, not like pop metal maybe.
Yeah.
But it
Poison
kind of
would be
lives in that
great
world.
here.
Hmm?
Poison would be great right here, you know?
Exactly right. It's that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it would be just like Mark Mothersbaugh, who's amazing, who's the music, at the time was the music. I think he did most of it, if not all of it. JG would give him a that, right, and be like, "Can we make something like this?" Or sometimes they would just outright buy it. I'm trying now. I can't remember. It's bothering me, but I want to say Van Halen had a song in it, and I know we based some episodes just off of songs,
Hmm.
um, which was great. And I'll also say some of the board artists were like amazing songwriters, like Sean Sellis,
Hmm.
Drace. I mean, Andre Salaf was like incredible. I'm forgetting people, but to your point earlier about like the mix of senses of humor, like that helped too.
Hmm.
People like different kinds of music, and so like JG had his style. JG's a big Led Zeppelin fan,
Yeah.
and you can see that in there 100%. And then like Drace is a big hip hop guy, and Sean too. Anyway, just you see it. You know, Sean loves a lot of like cool LA bands that I'd
Hmm.
never heard of, and I'd be like, oh, okay. But so you get that mix too, which is really helpful when there's a show that's as musical as regular show.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've always just been fascinated with like it said, how everything pairs just well when it's done right, it's done right, you know, and that's what regular show was from top to bottom, left to right, man. It was just phenomenal.
thanks, man.
Um, so with just set up the chairs, is there one scene or one moment in this episode that is so memorable that when you think about that title?
I mean, it's just them saying, did they say? Like, not gonna set up the chairs this time was the thing they keep repeating.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember. Oh, the thing I do remember that makes me laugh a lot. I haven't seen it in a little bit, but there's a moment when Rigby is like they have to open the shed to get the chairs,
Yeah.
and he's like pawing at the doorknob.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a. I think did JG board that? I don't remember. I'll be honest. I don't remember exactly who boarded it. It might have been JG and Mike. It might have been Sean. But whoever did it, like that moment is just such a skillful moment.
Hmm.
Honestly, it's just like to do that. It's just such a dumb. And I say dumb like to me that's the highest compliment. Like if
Yeah.
comedy is dumb, it's like it's such a dumb thing to just write a character who's like pawn like he can't open the doorknob because he keeps missing it. But to write that and then execute it it's very difficult. And I didn't know how difficult that was honestly. But like they do it, it's perfect. That's a great example of regular show. It's subtle and yet silly. It's a hard tone to hit, but they did it, and I was like, I remember seeing it, being like, damn. In addition to the comedy, like saying, "Not gonna have the chairs this time," like nailed it.
It's such a kid thing to do too. Do
Yeah,
you have kids?
I do. I have a daughter.
So it's like, hey, did you check your room for whatever I did? Are you sure? Yes. Did you look here? I did. And then you walk up there and then you just stare at it. It takes you and that's what it reminded me of. I was like, oh, they captured the inner child that is Rigby. And that's what they did with that little graze of a doorknob.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, nothing shows his character much stronger, and his motivation to again not work. Like nothing shows him much stronger than him refusing to open a doorknob,
Yeah.
like pretending he can't open it because it's too slippery or whatever it was. I mean, it was just perfect. It was really perfect.
When I think about that episode, so I just rewatched it for the first time. But when I think about that episode, there's a scene in there where they couldn't get it to work at the beginning before they started planning it. So they break it open. There's a little post-it note there from Skips that says,
Oh
"Do
yeah,
not connect the red and the blue wire." And they go and they connect the red and the blue wire. When we're talking dumb, that is one of the dumb. I was like, why did they just destroy it? And I'm like, oh well, they wouldn't have the episode if they would have just destroyed this. So I'm gonna leave a
yeah,
post-it note there. Don't touch these two wires together, and they go and
yeah.
do it. So
I explain this to my daughter with sitcoms all the time. She's always like, "But why is why are they doing the thing that's obviously the wrong thing to do?" And I'm like, "Well, that's
comedy.
that's comedy. That's who they are. It's in their character to do, like, they've been told not to do something, so they're going to do the thing. They make it harder, and they create this, there's an obstacle, and so they, they try and get around it, but then that creates something else. And yeah, if it was easy to do, this would be a very short, boring episode. If they set up the chair, it's like, that would not be fun. But the fact that they won't is makes it really fun.
And the end of this episode is perfect too because I tried this when I first got when I got with my wife. When we first started dating and stuff. I figured if I fucked up the laundry enough, I would never I hate doing laundry. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll just fuck up the laundry. And this is kind of what happened towards the end of this. They fuck up the chairs, like, oh, I don't have to do the chairs anymore. So I was like, oh shit, I don't have to do the laundry anymore. And she's like, nope, I've got all the time in the world to show you how to do laundry correctly. And I'm like, fuck, this backfired. So now I know how to properly do laundry.
Yeah,
That's the
it's
other
a
thing it
fun.
reminded me of.
Yeah, it's a fun thing I think that we would do sometimes, which is like they try and get out of this small thing, but then there's just much bigger now.
Hmm.
But it's always, yeah, again, it's always just like, oh, they could have just, they did so much work to get out of the thing, and now they have to do even more work. It's just a funny, I don't know. It like almost harkens back to like, I mean, it's just like old school comedy sitcom.
Hmm.
It's just like, and they were so
Silly
true to it.
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
silly shit.
absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and rotate into excellent. This one was so fun. Just I love JG's fascination with anything that's white trash, mullets, El Caminos, trucker hats, you know, I had this talk, shit, Paula Spence. I don't know why her name blanked on me. I had her on last
Ooh,
year, year before last, and we
I
just
love
deep
Paul
dove
Feig.
into her. Oh, she was such a phenomenal guest, man.
Totally.
And I think I told her the same thing. I'm just fascinated with JG's fascination of white trash culture because that's wife beaters, beer stains, it just breathes the South, right? Ladies and gentlemen from the South, so don't come after me. I see this shit all the time. I got family members that remind me of this. So this is not a slight. It's just made me feel like I'm at home. You know what I mean? I just see the characters that inhabit my world, right? Um, did how I just gotta ask, what is JG's fascination? What was the show's fascination with stuff like the El Caminos, the mullets? Was it just his style of humor? Did he find that stuff funny, or what was it all about?
Honestly, I think if I never thought, and I've thought about this so much in terms of like JG, what he's into, and just regular show where it comes from. I've actually never thought about it as a white trash thing. I've actually thought
Yeah.
about it more as like an '80s thing.
Yeah.
You know, like he loves cars. I'll say that, and Mike Roth
Hmm.
too loves cars. So Mike Roth loves old cars, and Mike was like intimately involved in every detail of regular show for the first at least 3 seasons. So cars I know come from both of them. They both love cars. If you pitch, I knew like if I pitched for every Dawn that I pitched that was garbage, I knew that if I pitched a car episode, that was like money in the bank. It was like low hanging
Old
fruit.
reliable.
Yeah, Don actually has a Corvette, so the only chance I would ever have had is like getting Don's Corvette. Like if I was like, oh, Don's at a Corvette, he suddenly sells Corvettes, and there's a magic one. Like that would have been a good idea. Uh, but anyway, so I actually think if to answer your question, I feel like his fascination is more just like the mullets are more of like an '80s thing.
Hmm.
Because I think our mullets an '80s thing. I think they're an '80s thing.
Dude, they're starting to come back, man. I got like three
Yeah,
kids at my job that are all, and they're all under 20. I think the
yeah.
two of them, they're under 18 now at this point, or
Probably
19.
regular show
Uh,
got them into it. But I do think
would be surprised.
that's like he likes that's his wheelhouse.
Aesthetic.
Like that, yeah, that like again like Led Zeppelin's before these, but like anything Goonies, anything like '80s
Mhm.
movies, like music, like that's his wheelhouse comedically, I think. I mean, he would have to tell you, but like my observations would be more. It's more about that than about any sort of
Yeah.
regional thing. I think.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it's just when I start seeing that, it reminds me of, like I said, family members and my home and
Mm,
people I grew up with, man. And like I said, when I say white trash, I mean it with the highest of the
sure.
respect when it comes to it. You know what I mean? Because it's very difficult to pull off a trucker hat in the 2000s and the aughts, as the kids like to say, man. So they did
Yeah,
it very well in regular show in 2009, 2010, whenever this episode aired.
that's what excellence all about.
That it is, man. And I know this is a long time ago, but this is right around the time Man versus Food was kind of blowing up. Was there any kind of like spillover from, somebody saw a Man versus Food episode and like, oh shit, we should put him in a cooking or an eating contest?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, well, first of all, we loved writing about food, as you
Hmm.
can probably tell.
Yeah.
I mentioned the donut stuff. We wrote like the ultimatum, like the what was it?
The
Oh,
hot dog episode, that was another
hot dog.
food-centric one. Cake
The
for Skips was another one.
Yeah, the where they
Yeah.
went to the. Let me get that. Anyway, there's you could break down a bunch of them, but if I'm not mistaken, JG actually there we knew of a place where you could go
Hmm.
get do this contest to win, which is what Excellent's all about. It's you could win a trucker, you could win something from eating a 12 egg omelet.
Hmm.
And it was not only the omelet, but it was like all the stuff. It was like bacon and sausage and like whatever grits and like just a lot of stuff on the side, biscuits.
Hmm.
And so I think that came from, which is where I think a lot of amazing stories come from, is like just your own personal life, a
Yeah.
little,
Observational.
yeah, right. And so that's where that started, and then it grew into what it was. I mean, honestly, I love this. This is my favorite episode. It's hard for me to pick other episodes because I love so many of them, but this is always the one when you're like, "What's your favorite?" This comes to mind, and part of it was the process because this episode, like in the writers' room, we're breaking the story, which means we're like figuring out the story, and
Hmm.
then our process was we would figure it out. I would write up a premise, and then we would send it to, and the premise is like three-quarters of a page, which breaks down that first, act one, act two, act three, right? Beginning,
Hmm.
middle, and end. It was really simple. And we send it then to the network. So the executives at Cartoon Network have to say, great, this sounds great. Go ahead and make the outline. And then that's another step. Well, when we initially did Excellent, the original premise was, have I told you the story before?
No, I don't remember this one though.
So the original premise was similar, like Rigby wants to win this trucker hat, and you can do that by eating this 12 egg omelet, but he's allergic to eggs, so he goes into a coma, but he makes Mordecai promise, right, to win him the hat. Like, it's a fun premise. And then Mordecai tries to win the hat, but when he tries to win the hat, in the original premise he was trained by he got sick, right,
Hmm.
because he tried to eat this omelet and he gets sick, but out of the his sick, a vomit man appears. And the Vomit Man has to train Mordecai to win and then helps him win, right? That's in the
As they
original
typically
premise.
do. Yeah, as they
Yeah,
typically
exactly,
do.
as they do. You
Yeah.
know the Vomit guy.
Yeah.
So the network is like, you can't do that. And the network is traditionally really lenient with regular show. Like
Hmm.
they're gonna meet, like, for God's sake, they let Rigby be in a coma. Like, this is a like they let death be a character in the
Hmm.
underworld. Like, I love Cartoon Network. Like, they let us push the envelope, and that's one of the reasons I think people love the show so much, right?
Hmm.
And it appeals to a lot of ages. But they drew the line there. They're like, no vomit guy. So we put the episode aside for a couple. This was rare for us. We put it aside for a couple months, wrote a bunch of other episodes. I remember being like, I want to bring it back. I want to figure out how to do this. Try it a little bit more. We add another vomit guy. For some reason, we're like, that's the fix. We added like dueling vomit guys, They would like fight and cancel each other out.
Yeah.
And the network was like, no, you can't have vomit guys.
Did they ever tell
Just
you
stop
why?
it. Did they say why?
Yeah, did they ever say why about the vomit guys?
Because it's a vomit. It's a guy made out of vomit. You can't do. I mean, truthfully, I think you can't show blood and you can't
Hmm.
show vomit. You can get sick off screen and get injured, but I think those are two very clear rules. But it makes sense if you think about it. Like, vomit guy? That's disgusting. So we put it aside again. Anyway, months later, we bring it back because I really love the idea. We bring it back. We retool it. We come up, I think, with the Excellent Knight at that point, which is like
Hmm.
one of my favorite side characters. We come up with this really cool, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark homage, and it just all clicks. There's no vomit guy. He's gone. Coleman's still there. Anyway, this is all just to say, like, it took a long time to write this episode, which it normally didn't, and it was so satisfying. And then they loved it, and then they produced it, and they, obviously it won an award. It won an Emmy Award, for God's sakes. And I remember being on stage with this Emmy Award, being like, "Oh my God, this started with a vomit guy." Like it's about a trucker hat and a guy and a Rigby's in a coma, and there's a vomit guy, and I'm holding this, prestigious award. And I don't really care about awards, but it was just like the whole thing was insane. And I love and this outside of all of that, I just love the episode. Again, it's a very regular show thing. It's about friendship. It's about doing something for your buddy, which is really what regular show's about.
Hmm.
Plus, it's the absurdity of everything that happens. So it has everything to me, and you can tell I'm excited talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, this one was a lot of fun because when you've watched the show so many times, like not everything kind of blends into one another, but you do forget
Sure.
like the little nuances. And one that I absolutely loved, it was like a little line. I don't want to say a throwaway line. But there was just this little line before Mordecai, teleports to select his prize for winning it. He's
Yeah.
like, "No, we were there." Like all the waiters stuff, like, "No, we were there to help you." And then he gets teleported and he has to
Yeah.
pick. And it reminded me of like this is what I love about this show when you can look at something and then it reminds you of growing up or it reminds you like even though that this was some of the wildest shit I've ever seen on TV. I mean, a golf cart that can travel through time and space,
Yeah.
a Yeti slash abominable snowman that was voiced by Luke Skywalker. All of these other little like the show, if you explain it to somebody, it doesn't make sense. But when you
No.
see it, it's like it's like, oh my God, it fucking makes like how is this not the norm? Right? How is this not the show for everything, right? But I loved, like I said, just being able to pick out my own life experiences by looking at this show. And then it made me feel like I was in Chuck E. Cheese. Like he's going over there, like, what can I select with this golden ticket? With these
Yeah.
tickets that cost my mom hundreds of dollars, what can I get for this 30 cents worth of material? And that's what it felt like. He's picking the hat. And then at the end, he gets the right one. He shuts the door, opens the door. The knight opens the door and he puts out another one because it's another dime a dozen. Like I said, it just had Chuck E. Cheese written all over it.
Yeah, I mean that moment killed me. Like when he just picks up another hat,
Yeah.
he's like, "You've chosen wisely," and he puts it on, and it's like,
Yeah.
boom. The other moment I love in there, which is like regular show had great editing.
Hmm.
They edited it like it isn't it. They really hit comedically on the editing, which
Oh yeah.
some shows just don't do. They don't care, right? And there's a moment where, and you've seen it more recently than I have, but Rigby, like it's a hard cut. Like Rigby takes a bite of the egg. Like I think it's one bite, and
Yeah.
then boom, hard cut to the ambulance. And it was just like such a, and we wrote it, but I don't think we wrote smash cut to ambulance. I just think that's in the edit, in the animatic, which is such an important
Yeah.
part of making a cartoon. In the animatic, they were like, "Oh, dude, just have it be just a smash cut, a real hard cut to the ambulance," and that just make it's so stupid. And and again, he's in a coma, which is we're writing for essentially, the demographic officially is like boy, and like not boys, but kids 6 to 11, and but that makes the show, kids are first of all smarter than you give
Hmm.
them credit for, so they can handle that. A, B, it also gives older people something to watch and really love. I mean, like my dad could watch that and appreciate it.
A
So
dad, a dad was watching it with his little kid, and that's
yeah,
what made us bond over this show, man.
yeah, it's
Or that's
great.
what made us come together after so many deployments and me being gone for so long. We were able to watch something about a blue jay or a scrub jay and a little raccoon. One thing that I love, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I actually wrote I whenever I watch these episodes, I go down and write things, whether it's I love the background in this or I'll write little lines. The one line that I absolutely loved for this one, and it was the hard cut scene that you were just talking about,
Mhm.
was when they were talking about like you're allergic to eggs. He's like, yeah, but I thought if I ate them fast enough, I wouldn't be allergic. That
Yeah.
that is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, but one of the funniest things, just because of what you said. The edit was so sharp and so tight. Him
Yeah.
just essentially dying, and they're like, I thought I could cheat death by eating it quicker. You know what I mean? It was just brilliant writing.
And it's also, that says a lot about Rigby. That's who Rigby was. I mean, he was so stubborn and impulsive, and and a little dumber than Mordecai. It wasn't a
Hmm.
Beavis and Butthead situation where they're just like on the same exact level. Like I think Rigby was a really endearing character because of that. That's a real thing. I mean, I have friends like I have a very good friend who reminds me of Rigby in a lot of ways, and I would draw on that a lot, just thinking about things Rigby might do when
Hmm.
we're pitching ideas. And yeah, that's a real relatable thing, And it don't, but like the want of the hat is really relatable. But then yeah, the complete lunacy of saying that is very Rigby and just
Yeah.
a stupid thing to do.
Big old heart, little old brain, man.
Yes,
Um,
tiny
I got a
brain.
dog. I got a dog that's like that. Biggest, he's a love sponge. Dumbest dog I've just ever had. I look at him I'm like, if you were born out in the wild, your mother would have eaten you. We both know this. You know what I mean? So, gotta
But
love
Rigby's
those
also very
characters.
smart in other ways. Like he had a different kind of smarts, right? I mean, he was like,
Hmm.
savvy and
Street smart, as they like
he
to
just
say.
he just yeah. I think he came up with fun schemes and stuff, and I think that's the beauty of Rigby too. He wasn't like I keep Beavis and Butthead again, but like he wasn't. He did his impulsiveness is probably a better
Hmm.
word than just not being smart, but like he just did things, but that got him into these mishaps, and what made
Hmm.
him very funny.
Yeah, that's why we all laughed at this character, man, because
For
of the
sure.
things he would do. Um, like I said, dude, the third episode you picked is a two-parter and it's the finale.
Yeah.
Um, I gave you those three at the beginning, man. Baby Ducks, the finale, and shit. Why am I drawing a blank on the third one? The
Oh, you
pilot.
said the pilot. Like,
Yep, the pilot. There you go. Finale and Baby Ducks. Those are the
yeah.
pinnacle for me. Mount if I had a Mount Rushmore of regular show episodes, or if I had to tell somebody that's never seen the show, hey, watch one of these three, you're going to be addicted and hooked off the bat.
Hmm.
These are the three episodes I give one of these three. The finale, man, from start to finish. Um, even with having so much time, I haven't watched this one probably since the finale hit live, way back in the day. But fuck, it hit you real hard. It
Yeah.
holds up. It's beautiful. It's perfect. I would love to know anything and everything that you could possibly think of that made this finale come to be.
Well, I can say that I can say um, it was really important to us and it's really rare that you're working on anything. And first of all, I had the longevity of regular shows, so 8 seasons.
Hmm.
But it's really rare that going into that eighth season, that last season, whatever it's going to be, 10th season, whenever, it's really rare that you know that you're going to end it and you can end it how you want to end it, right?
Hmm.
And we knew that like this is going to be it. We had had this amazing time. Um, a handful of us had been there the whole time, like myself, and like we had this rare opportunity. So we did something diff. We pitched this moon going to space idea, which at first the network was like, "Huh, that's weird," but we wanted to try it just because it was a new challenge,
Hmm.
right? And we'd done a bunch of one-off episodes, and we were like, "Oh, this would be interesting. Let's do regular show, but in space, basically." So we tried that, but we knew it all had to lead to something because we had to land the dome back on Earth, and it had to mean something. And then gradually, it just came out that like we were just talking about the characters, and it just seemed like Pops was sort of the most enigmatic character. Pops and Skips probably.
Hmm.
But Skips we'd investigate a little bit more, and we kind of knew his backstory more, and we were kind of like, gosh, we don't know like really Pops that much. Weirdly, for such a key character, we know the character, like what he does, right, on a day
Hmm.
to day. He says jolly good show, and he's a lovable lollipop given guy. But anyway, it seemed like he was enigmatic in a way that would be interesting. We started talking about anti-pops, and it just one thing led to another, and we wanted to end. Obviously, regular show I think is a lot in the '80s way about like being heroic and saving the
Hmm.
day. I think that's important to JG, and it's important to me. I'm more like I love the sports movie,
Yeah.
and I love a good like a good win,
Underdog
a good
story.
good Rudy story. I love those, and so it's important to him too. We're all like softies, and we want anyway. That this is all a long way of saying we wanted But we also regular show has some sadness to it. I think there's some
Mhm.
melancholy regular show. So that was sort of the trade-off in a lot of ways. Like Pops, we learn about Pops, obviously his history with anti-Pops, and then how he sacrifices himself in this very elegant way, so that the whole universe can survive. And anyway, obviously there are a million more conversations that went into it, but that's the long and the short of it. Is it was important to JG too to show, like, and you and I talked about this a little bit before, but like the process of
Mhm.
making animation. And I think part of the beauty of the finale is like if the universe went away, something as personal as making animation goes away. Something as personal to JG and everyone who's ever worked on that show. Um, and so to show it unraveling on the show, to show the fabric of the storyboard unraveling and the post-its and everything and how the show was made, even I think there's a little bit of JG's original short film. I think there's a little moment
Yes.
of it in there.
Yep.
And so to show that all unraveling and just show like, wow, everything would unravel. It's not just these cartoon characters. It's like, it's everything. It's the process unraveling. That to me hits on another level, which I was just proud to be a part of. And I think again, it was satisfying to see them, and then to see their. I'm a big fan of 6 Feet Under,
Mhm.
and 6 Feet Under had an amazing finale. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a sort of
I
legendary
saw it at the
finale.
beginning.
So at the very end of it, they show what happens to all the characters, not in that sort of like graphic, like not graphic, but like title card, like
Mhm.
Joe became a doctor and
Yeah.
moved to Nebraska. It's like they show it and they show them age and they show how they die. It's
Mhm.
really, really beautiful. It's like a legendary finale. And I know that was sort of like we talked a little bit about that. Like it'd be cool to show these guys where they are, not just say where they are, but like show it, and show
Mhm.
these characters we've fallen in love with, like what they're up to. Even just little snippets underneath heroes. Anyway, it all came together, and I mean, I was definitely crying. I was crying when we were talking about it, but I remember a really one of the most beautiful moments of regular show was we were working on Close Enough at this time. We'd gone on. That's the next show that JG had after regular show, and we were writing it. And the finale came on. It aired, right? It dropped, and we were in JG's office. I think it was me, Sean Salas, Calvin Wong, and JG, and we were all in JG's office, and we were watching on Twitter. We were watching the comments and just seeing all the like crying emojis
Yeah.
and like I can't believe it's gone and everything. And it was we were all like, regular show is pretty. I mean, again, as I said, there's a lot of heart to it. But I think when we were writing it, it was like just a lot of laughter and
Mhm.
um, but it wasn't like super emotional. But that room was emotional. I mean,
Yeah.
just seeing how much it affected people in real time is rare for anything to any TV viewing uh, situation. And it was emotional, man. I remember vividly sitting there and just tearing up and looking at my phone and being like, "Oh my god, this is hitting people right now, and they're getting hit hard." So you don't say that a lot about a comedy cartoon, like a show that's thought of. I think it's pretty funny.
Well,
So for that to have
when
that impact, it meant a lot.
when you guys stretched that muscle, because it's not like it was out of the norm because you did see little dramatic, nothing to that level though, done during regular show at that time. And I always likened it when, say, an actor that was known for something in specific, like, so say Robin Williams, my favorite actor, in my opinion, the greatest actor of all time, goes from Mrs. Doubtfire, my favorite Robin Williams movie, to 24-hour photo. You go, holy shit. What the
Yeah,
fuck is that? Does he have that in there? And then you can take it one step further. Do you ever watch Cloverfield, was it 21 Cloverfield Lane? So they had a Cloverfield and then they had the sequel to it where it was all in a
I saw
bunker.
Cloverfield in the theater because I remember I was like, "I'm gonna be sick. I'm gonna have a little vomit man's gonna come out of me right now." So that's why I didn't watch 21 Clover, but I know what you're talking about.
So John Goodman's in there, and he's
Yeah,
this. So if you know anything
great
about that
actor.
one, he's a phenomenal actor. But he
Yeah.
he goes from, hey man, he was shit man, Connor. I can't think of his first name from Roseanne. Um,
Well,
I can
Dan,
see
isn't
his
he? He's
Dan
Dan,
Connor. Thank you. Yeah, Dan
right?
Connor. Yeah, everybody's he's America's dad, man. He's in the red and black flannel. He
Yeah.
gives you life lessons, right? He's not somebody to be afraid of. And then you see him in 21 Cloverfield Lane, you're like, "Oh my God, he's a sadistic son of a where the fuck is this?" You
Yeah.
see that switch, and that's kind of what I felt like when I was watching this finale. It was like I was brought up through this entire series. Laughs, you'd have some heartfelt stuff in there. You would learn some lessons and
Sure.
stuff like that, but nothing to this level. And there was a line, I'm going to butcher it. Because, like I said, I wrote everything down on a receipt, and I think somebody threw it away because that's all the paper I had, and I
That's
think
fair.
somebody threw it away
The
when they were
Rigby
wiping the
move,
counters
but
down.
okay, sure.
Yeah, yeah. But it goes, Pops goes. This is essentially when he sacrifices himself, and you see Mordecai. Ladies and gentlemen, spoiler alert! If you haven't watched this yet, I mean, go back and watch this, and then come watch us cry. But he goes in with Auntie Pops into the sun, and then he goes, "Hey, this is a sad moment, but this has a happy ending."
Yeah,
And I go, "What the fuck?" And it stuck with me for just a second, and then it switches to the first couple minutes of the pilot, and I'm going,
yes,
"What is going on?" And then Rigby touches, and it's like a flash forward. He's like, "Oh shit, this all happened." And it took Mordecai a little bit for him to realize, like, "Oh shit, we've been here before," type of thing. And
yeah.
it was just this beautiful, like you had mentioned, just this beautiful wrap up of, because everybody always has those questions after something ends. What is such and such doing? Like me, I try to distance myself because I don't ever want to be, even though I have a podcast where I say, "Come tell me your secrets, Magic Man, Mike, Matt, tell me all these things that you made." I don't want to be that fan who goes like, "What's he doing now?" You know what I mean? Because I was like, that character is done with. But you guys kind of took that out of the hands of the fans, and you knew that those questions, I guess, would be asked. Like, and you probably had those questions yourself writing these characters. For 8 seasons is a long fucking time. 200 plus, what do you say, 250, 260 episodes? That's a lot of time with these characters, you know what I mean? So you probably had those same questions that us fans would have, man. But seeing every character too that has played some, even if it was the smallest part, throughout the entire mythos of regular show, come back for a split second to save the regular show universe. I mean, you have no idea. Like I said, I had not seen this in so long because I was afraid of going down that hole again and being like, fuck. The first
uh,
time I see it, dude, I'm not one of those guys that gets on Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. And like when I'm watching it with people, like I'm live tweeting, like I like to sit and marinate with my thoughts for just a little bit. But it was one of those things where it hit me so fucking hard at the live showing of the finale. I took a step away from watching anything for quite some time, man. I was like,
oh wow,
I need to process this, because it was like there was a lot of shit that went over there, and I was like, I didn't think I was smart enough to catch half of the shit that was going in there that was so beautiful, so poignant.
me neither,
But then
man.
it was just like, oh fuck, no, I got what they're saying, man. It just felt really, really weird. I was like, I never had a show, especially a show that ended like that, just so beautifully. But that line I was telling you about, man, it's like it has a happy ending, and you see all these characters, they have lives. Some of them have kids, some of them get together and have kids. You know what I mean? It was just beautiful,
Yeah,
beautifully done.
I mean that means a lot. One of the things I love, because now it's been like what, five? No, it was like
5, 6 years. I think
yeah,
2018, 2017, somewhere in there.
yeah, something like that, right? Yeah, like 7 years, something. I mean, 6, 7 years. Like talking to people now about the show, especially because now people are, people that grew up with it are now
Mhm.
in college, maybe, right?
Might have some kids of their
Uh,
own.
yeah, or they're older, they have kids of their own, maybe they caught it in their 20s. I don't know, whenever it is, but like talking to people now about how it impacted them in certain ways is so satisfying and just means a lot. And I know that episode in particular really, meant a lot to the fans for sure, but
Yeah.
just people in general. And to be a part of that, I mean, again, you got to remember, like I started basically writing on just set up the chairs.
Yeah.
And then to come 8 years later and be like, wow, we've, built this world people know about, hundreds of characters, this core group is this nucleus. And to see that nucleus save all those other characters, and like you said, those other characters help save it. But just the fact that it's alive, and to me, it seemed like it was very alive and real,
Yeah.
and so it's really a testament again to JG's vision of it and all the literally hundreds of people that worked on it. I'm so grateful for that opportunity to be a part of that. And so I don't, when you say like, it made me cry, I had to step away from watching other shows because it impacted you. You watch it with your son, like all that stuff. I don't take it for granted. It's like, it, anyway, it means a lot.
Well,
So thank
trust
you
me,
for
the
telling
stuff.
me that.
Well, thank you for doing this stuff, man. I mean, you guys, I love doing this show because I get to say thank you, right? We had this talk at not the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, we actually did this chat like 3 years ago, probably
We
even
did, yeah.
almost 4 years. It was a long time ago, and my laptop got stolen, and then it went downhill after that. There's like 5 or 6 episodes that I'll never be able to release because they were on that. This is before I knew what a external hard drive was. I'm very dumb when it comes to technology, so I didn't know about backing up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So we've made some changes and we've gotten a little bit better and a little bit tighter when it comes to these episodes. But I had told you way back in the day, man, it was just like this thing was completely done because I wanted to say thank you. Kobe Bryant died roughly right around the time we were talking, maybe a few months
Oh,
after, he had passed
right.
away.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do the show, right? And I wanted to say thank you because it's like much like Pops, man, we're not always going to be here, right? So our impact, good, bad, you know, um, good, bad, or indifferent. We don't know what we're gonna have. We don't know what we're gonna leave behind. We don't know what our work might mean to somebody, man.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to talk to so many of you folks and say thank you. Like I said, if I ever have anybody on the show, it's 100% a fan. I'm not one of those guys that'll go out there and chase anybody just to get some views and some clicks and shit like that. Like I really appreciate what you guys do. I mean, it might just seem like it's clocking. Like a lot of people's like, it's just a job, man. I appreciate you appreciating me, but it was just like I was just doing what I love to do. It felt like a job. It doesn't feel anything else. I was like, but it feels something different to us. You guys gave us some motivation. You guys gave us a way to problem solve just by watching these fictitious characters work shit out on the screen. Like, well, that didn't work that way, so maybe I shouldn't do what he or she did in that situation. So, like I said, it's a long roundabout way of saying thank you, man, because like I said, we loved the finale, we loved the show, and we're so sad that these characters are gone, but they're with us forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to think. I mean, a cool thing now is people are discovering the show again on streaming,
Hmm.
and people are like younger, especially kids. And I'm grateful, and I hope it stays on streaming forever. That kids are finding it again, and that you can revisit it. It's a great rewatch. Um, you can just pop onto any season, any episode. But dude, thank you. I mean, I really appreciate everything you're saying. I'm grateful it meant something to you.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So as we start to wind down here, there are some questions. Even though I've been doing nothing but asking you questions this entire chat, there are some questions that we like to do at the end, like quick hitters, first thoughts that come to your mind.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask you this as far as and it's going to come back up a little bit later, as a derivative of this question. But when it comes to the finale, is
Yeah.
there one moment, one scene, one line of dialogue, one anything in there that sticks out more than anything else?
I mean, there is a moment, and I'm gonna butcher it, and you kind of mentioned it. I want to say Pops, like, and when Auntie Pops doesn't wanna, he doesn't understand when Pops hugs Auntie Pops and they're going into the sun, if I'm not
The Grinch
mistaken.
scene? Is that the Grinch scene when his heart grew 2 sizes too big?
It was literally like Pops was sacrificing himself,
Hmm.
and the only way he could really do it was by hugging Auntie Pops. Does
Hmm.
that ring a bell?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember the scene.
But I remember Auntie Pops, if I'm not mistaken, he's very reluctant to do it. He doesn't understand, and Pops is basically, I'm gonna start getting emotional, but he's hugging him. He won't let him
Hmm.
go.
Yeah.
And there's a moment, I believe, where you could see Auntie Pops like release,
Yes. Yeah.
like he's like, okay, and he Pops won, and it's just like
Hmm.
such a real thing,
Yeah.
like when someone's in pain. And I remember that talking about that moment and being like, we write the dumbest stuff on this show.
Hmm.
Like, couldn't be dumber. But that moment came from a very real place for I think all of
Yes.
them. And to be able to put that in a cartoon and have that exist in what was a lot of ridiculousness through the other 260 episodes, that really stood out to me
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, that's not a funny moment, and trust me, I love gags and I love I write dumber jokes, just like I love them. That was one of the realest moments I've ever seen in animation, and I loved it. It showed me. It was also a thing I think about, like, well, I'm feeling something from this, and people sometimes are like, I don't like cartoons because I don't. They're not real, and I'm like, that felt pretty real right there.
It felt really real that moment.
Yeah. And anyway, that moment really sticks out to me. And I brought up again. I love music, and I'm very manipulated by soundtracks.
Hmm.
And when they come into, when they're landing and everyone's like cheering and Heroes is on, I'm just like, forget it.
Crushed it.
Yeah, I'm such a like, movie moment, guy catches touchdown in the end of Friday Night Lights, they
Freeze frame.
win. It's just like, I'm like, that's it for me. And so when you
Yeah.
have that hero moment, I'm all in. So those are what I remember from the finale. Those are among many other things, but also there was a moment I do love. There was a moment at the very end when more older Mordecai and Rigby are sitting on the steps,
Hmm.
and they're sort of like the conversation is sort of like, "Wow, I can't believe it. You think we'll ever, They're being just reflective of everything that
Yeah.
happened, and their families are playing, and that got me too.
Hmm.
Like having a kid, knowing how hard it is to see your friends when you have
Yeah.
kids. But here they are, they've gone through so much, and they're there, like haven't seen each other as much, but still got a lot of love. I was like, dude, we're grown up. Like the show
Yeah.
grew up. And so that was a big part of it too. Like, wow, we've all now a couple of us have kids now and we're all grown up, and like the show grew up. And so those moments to me are like on a bigger level
Hmm.
other than jokes. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that's probably not like to a fan watching, like, well, that's not fun.
I don't give a shit, man. This
That's
is
real.
for people that's what we love. Well, it
Yeah.
don't have to be a funny. It doesn't have to be something that's poignant. I mean, it could be
Yeah.
something as special as just seeing your like that's like I said. I attach this so much to life experiences. When you can see yourself in a character, and I've said this on so many occasions. When you can see yourself in a character, you can root for that character because you're like, I know its inner motives, its flaws, it's things that it gets does good. I know what it makes it scared. You know what I mean? So you could see yourself in there, so you can therefore connect with that character at a deeper level. And connecting with the character, man, I didn't know how Pops's death was going to affect me until it happened. Like in most shows, you get like little hints. Like if you ever watch a show and they go really heavy on a character that's in a predicament, like a really weird situation. Like they start showing flashbacks,
Yeah.
like, oh, this guy or this girl's getting ready to fucking eat it right now, and we're gonna see at the end of the episode, they're gonna eat it. And it was like, maybe I was just like so enthralled with the backgrounds, and this one were probably my favorite throughout the entire series.
Oh yeah.
I
Beautiful.
loved the final season. I'm a huge background guy, but I fucking loved
Yeah.
all of the spaceships, the meteor, just fucking beautiful from start to
So
finish.
beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, it really well done. But lost my train of thought because I was going for the backgrounds. But no, the just the characters, just being able to see yourself in these, it was something that spoke to me so well. Were you ever a comic book guy back in the day? Ever get into comic books at all?
I was a Marvel kid. I
Hmm.
mean, honestly, I grew up reading a lot of like Archie comics,
Yeah.
like in the back seat, just on a road trip. Like I would just have, they had these at the time, these double digests,
Hmm.
and I would just read Archie's. But I was also like, I was a Marvel kid, um, for sure. Yeah.
Well, the only reason I bring that up is because most of the time, if you're a comic book person, if you don't see a body, it doesn't count as a real death because they can come
Right.
back no matter what, right? So the thing, and I don't know if this was intentional or if I was just the weed was kicking in when I was watching this one because that tends to happen too. So
Right.
I think I'm a little bit smarter than I actually am. But I'm watching this and I'm smoking a joint, and you don't see a body. Like you see him disappear, but you don't see a funeral, right? And then they raised the statue, and that's where I'd already started to like tear up, but that's when it felt
Oh,
like for
yeah.
real. That's like when you're at a funeral and then they're closing that casket and lowering that person. That's what that felt like to me. That was that minute of closure, even though it really wasn't closure. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if that was intentional. Like you were showing, you couldn't really show a body, but you kind of had to show the finality
Yeah.
that was Pops. But I just thought it was beautiful. Them raising that statue and them all standing around in their suits. it was one of those like, fuck, dude. It was a heavy moment and just a still shot. Like if you had to pause, I'm like, fuck, I can feel this picture, you know?
Yeah, it seemed like it was a more graceful way for Pops to leave this earth,
Hmm.
or leave the universe basically, than to like show a grisly death or like a regular show has a lot of cartoony deaths.
Hmm.
And you obviously aren't going to do that to someone like Pops. But yeah, to show like a real life, again, the reality of it, which I thought regular showed mixed surrealism and realism very well. But yeah, to have that impactful moment of the statue post funeral, yeah, it's heavy because we've all unfortunately been there and we've put on that suit and you know what that's like, and
Hmm.
it's heavy. But again,
Yeah.
I give Cartoon Network a lot of credit, to let us do that and to let us end it our way and to actually have a very artistic, these things the board artists were doing are like phenomenal and the
Hmm.
background artists, like you're saying. But to let us do that and add this very real sort of melancholy to it, it's rare. I can't tell you how rare it is. I work
Yeah.
on other shows where that's not happening. They're not letting you do that because they did some focus group where 7-year-old kids in St. Louis get scared if there's that you
Hmm.
mentioned dead, and it's so weird. It was again lucky, fortunate. I'll say fortunate they let us do it.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm glad they did, man. So like I said, these next questions we'll get through as many as we can, just rapid fire. First thoughts that come to your mind.
Sure.
Um, you got a favorite memory from regular show when you think about working on this show? Anything stick out that we haven't talked about?
Things Scott that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
We talked about the games. That's a big memory for me. I mean, it's funny. It just came to my mind as you said, top of my mind. I remember at the we had a Christmas party,
Oh, I love Christmas party stories.
and I was sitting with a legendary his name is Brian Miller. He's like an executive. He
Hmm.
was at Cartoon Network forever. He like really helped build it up. And
I had him on the show not too long ago.
oh,
Nice
you
guy.
did?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Yeah,
very nice guy.
super nice guy. I'm sitting with Brian Miller, and the show hasn't even come out yet, right? And we're having, it's a smaller crew because it's Christmas. It was not. Oh wait, I guess it had come out because it wasn't. I'm trying to think. It wasn't the first Christmas where we'd barely done anything. I guess yeah, it was the second Christmas, right? So the show had actually come out. It just came out.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting with Brian, and we're just having like gingerbread men or whatever. And he's like having fun. We're having chit chat, and he goes, "You know what? I feel like there's going to be a bunch of Christmas parties." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I just think this show's going to be on for a long time." And I remember thinking, "Wow, that'd be awesome," because I wasn't, I'd worked on like I said, a bunch of Comedy Central shows that had been on like, a season or two, maybe three, but like he was envisioning like this was going to be a big hit. And I
Yeah,
remember thinking that'd be awesome. And then to go from there again to see it become like, a pretty beloved show was really cool. So I remember that vividly.
pretty dope. I gotta
Hot
be
Sub
honest,
Cold Sub we talked about. Hot Sub Cold Sub is a big memory for me.
I like that one a lot, man. Pretty surreal moment, I have to imagine. Now I'll we can end it with this one because, like I said, we've talked so much, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. Um,
My
but
daughter, she wants me to eat our dinner.
Oh man, one episode you would recommend to somebody. I told you this would be a derivative of one we had asked earlier, but if there's one episode in your entire run of regular show that you would recommend to somebody that has no idea what regular show is, but you know they would get hooked off of this one show, this one episode, what would it be?
Other than excellent,
Hmm.
man, I mean, there's a couple that, I mean, look, if I thought they were like a silly person, well, okay, I would say Just Set Up the Chairs is classic. I would say watch that, you get the show if you want beginning regular show. If you're like a silly person, I think Tance. Tance is a great example. It's ridiculous. It makes me laugh a lot. If you do have a little darkness to you, I think Guitar of Rock is like, if you're older, I think Guitar of Rock's a great one. They go to the underworld to get Bruce Rock's guitar. And Trucker Hall of Fame too is the same because I'm a big muscle. We haven't talked about Muscle Man at all. I'm a giant Muscle Man fan. But outside of all that, I'm still gonna say like watch Just Set Up the Chairs are excellent. But if I know the person a little bit, I'm like trying to gear it to their personality. Those are the next couple that I'm like, all right, this is a little aged up a little bit. This is a little sillier, things like that.
Right on, man. Well, like I said, this has been a blast. Thank you again for redoing this episode.
Oh,
It's
dude,
always a pleasure to
I'm
get a
so
chat
glad
with
we
you guys.
could. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, man. Well, if the fans want to say, hey, I loved Excellent, just set up the chairs and anything else that you've written on, where can they find you on social media at all?
It's funny. You can go to Instagram if you want. I'm at Maddie Prizzle,
Hmm.
Maddie Prizzle, two T's, two Z's at Instagram. I don't do a lot of social media anymore. I get, I don't love it, but I used
I don't
to, and
blame
now
you.
it's gotten to be too dark, honestly.
That it is.
But Maddie Prizzle, sure, you can find me there.
Find them there, and then, ladies and gentlemen, go on to Max and stream a couple episodes of regular, a couple seasons, man. Fuck, do them all, one through
Do them
eight. Do
all,
them all.
dude. Get
Do them
into it.
all. Yeah. Well, like I said, man, it's always a pleasure to get to talk to somebody that worked on this beautiful show, man. Well, he's been Matt. I've been Julian. It's been a What's My Head podcast, and it's been another piece of your childhood. Good night.